Some of you all are familiar with the agency. It's actually an autonomous agency that regulates approximately 30 professions through 19 boards. So again, today I'm representing the Asbestos Lead and Home Inspectors. And pretty informal. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them as we go along, and we'll go from there. A brief introduction again. I'm Jill Richardson. I want to give you a little background of my how I ended up with the board for Asbestos Lead and Home Inspectors. Some of you may recognize me. I've actually been with DPOR for 2 years. I worked with the board for Contractors up until March of this year when I transferred. So I've had 2 years of experience under Eric Olson, and now I'm with the board for Asbestos Lead and Home Inspectors, as well as 3 other boards. Prior to that, I worked for Circuit City as a compliance manager there. So I've been in the regulatory business both on the government side and the private industry as well. Okay, brief history of the Asbestos Lead and Home Inspectors Board. The asbestos program started it all in 1987. At that point, however, there was no board. It was actually just the program. 6 years later, the board was created and it became the Board for Asbestos Licensing. A year later, lead was added, and we had the Board for Asbestos Licensing and lead certification. In 1997, I guess they decided that name was a little too long, so they shortened it to Board for Asbestos and Lead. And then in 2001, the General Assembly gave us the Home Inspector certification. So it was name again changed to the Board for Asbestos Lead and Home Inspectors. Now, some of you may have heard rumor that there are a couple new programs coming to the Department of Professional and Occupational Regulation, one being mold. That will be a part of the Asbestos Lead and Home Inspectors Board. So probably this time next year, the board will have yet another name. Now I'm going to talk more about those new programs at the end of my presentation. Here you have a list of the current board members. There are 13 of them. As you can see, the Commonwealth is very well represented. However, the makeup of the board is actually dictated by statute. Statute tells us, for example, that there has to be a citizen member, that there has to be a home inspector, that there has to be a lead contractor, that there has to be an asbestos contractor, so forth and so on. Board staff. I added this slide in. Many of you were at the Roanoke presentation, and I know some of you were, but not all of you. I added this slide in from the last time I did this. I think it's important that you all know who you're talking to when you call the board. The folks on the left are the administrative staff. That includes David Dick, who's the executive director. He could not be here today, so he sent myself and Michelle Atkinson, who is the other board administrator, in his place. David Petrie is the office manager / licensing supervisor, and Michelle Nolan is their administrative assistant. The licensing staff is on the right. That's Marjorie, Sylvania, and Christine. They all report to David Petrie, but they are our first line of defense. They are the ladies that answer the phone when you call. They're the ones that process your applications, that issue your licenses and your renewals, so forth and so on. So they really are the front line of defense for us. These next couple slides, I'm sure many of you in this room are familiar with already, but I did just want to go over it briefly. This is a naturally occurring mineral fiber. It was used for many years for its fire retardant and insulation. It was banned by the EPA in 1989, but then that ban was overturned in 1991. New uses remain banned today, as well as flooring felt, roll board, and corrugated commercial or specialty paper. More about asbestos. Asbestos fibers inhaled into the lungs cause cancer. Hopefully that's not news to anyone in this room. Asbestosis is a cancer in which the lungs become scarred with the fibrous tissue. Mesothelioma is a cancer of the lining of the chest and abdominal cavity. This one is fatal. The risk increases based on the number of fibers inhaled, and unfortunately, you may not know you've even been exposed until 20 or 30 years later. That is usually when you start having side effects of inhaling asbestos. The Asbestos Hazard Emergency Response Act was passed by Congress in 1986. It mandated asbestos inspection and management plans for private and public schools grades K through 12. It also established training and licensing standards. SHARA came along in 1990. It is the Asbestos School Hazard Abatement Reauthorization Act, and it amended HARA by extending its requirements to both public and commercial buildings. So not just schools anymore, but any public and commercial building. Okay, MAP, the Model Accreditation Plan. That is the EPA regulation that established licensing and training requirements for asbestos work. It also empowered EPA to authorize states to administer MAP on behalf of the EPA. So those states had to first document a program that was at least as protective as MAP. Virginia received an EPA authorization in 1989, and then a reauthorization in 1994 under the revised MAP. We were the first in the nation at that point. Okay, who does DPOR regulate? As I mentioned in the opening, we have about 30 professions roughly that we regulate, but I'm just going to speak to the asbestos regulations today, the regular population, excuse me. Individuals, there's the worker, the supervisor, the inspector, management trainer, project designer, and project monitor. I'm sure most of you in this room are familiar with those roles, so in the next couple slides, I'm really going to focus on the firms, the analytical labs, the contractors, and the training programs. I do want to start with a few licensing statistics. The total asbestos regulant population is 4,628 as of June 1st. And you can see the breakdown here between the different types of licenses. The individuals are the first 6 and the firms are the last 3. The analytical lab, these are labs that are authorized by the board to perform phase contrast, polarized light, and transmission electron microscopy. Please note that not all labs are licensed to perform all 3. They could be, they could just have one, they could have any mix of the 3. But it's very important that if you are using the lab, you make sure that they are licensed properly for the type of analytical service that you want to have performed. The best way to do that is to check DPO's online lookup at DPOR.virginia.gov to confirm the lab status. And this goes for any license at DPOR. The contractor, real estate agent, barber, your nail tech for the ladies in the room, any type of license that we regulate before, you can check their status at this website. Once you get onto the home page, the very top left will be the license lookup, and where the blue arrow is here on this screenshot. You click on that, and then this screen will appear. And this is where you can type in the name, if you're lucky enough to know the full name of the company or individual you're researching, zip code, and then the license certificate number, if you happen to have that. And then below that, you would have to pick which profession this person is in. This next screen we've demonstrated what you would type in each of those blocks. And then the asbestos. For contractors and labs, you would click the first box under asbestos. For individuals, it's the second box. And for the training providers, for your initial and refresher courses, it would be the third box. I'll be the first to admit that this is not the most user-friendly website. My recommendation is the least amount of information you put in here, the better off you are.
You have to be very specific on spelling.
Exactly.
They're all one letter.
Exactly. If you put in, I believe if you put in CO for company instead of spelling out company, for example,
Right.
you'll have some difficulty. Of course, if you know that license and certificate number is the best way to go, you just put in 10 digits and it should pull it up automatically. But if you're struggling with the name, the least amount of information you put in that block, the better off you are, the more results you'll pull up. But you might have to do it a couple times. Okay, asbestos contractors. licensed with the Board for Asbestos Lead and Home Inspectors as an Asbestos Supervisor. That's step number one. Your company would then go to the Board for Contractors and apply for the Class A, B, or C license with the ASB specialty. That's the asbestos specialty. That person who is your asbestos supervisor, would be the qualified individual on that contractor's license. Once you obtain the contractor's license, you would then come back to the Board for Asbestos Lead and Home Inspectors to get your asbestos contractor's license. So a lot of folks get to step 2 with the Board for Contractors with the ASB specialty and they think they're gone. And you're actually not. That board notifies us that you've received their license. If you don't come to the Board for Asbestos Lead and Home Inspectors for the 3rd step, we will notify you that you need to do so. Yes, ma'am.
How does the contractors know about the 3rd step to get the asbestos license? Because we have a lot of contractors that are ready to start a job and they only have their regular
Contractor's license. It's a communication on our end as well as, the individual who's in that line of work should know all regulatory rules and statutes that they have to follow. But the Board for Contractors does notify us when they issue a license with both ASB or lead on it. And then we would then send a letter to that contractor saying, hey, Board for Contractors, let us know you've got this specialty. You also need our license. So they should have been notified.
How much longer would it take, does it normally take for them to get that license if they don't have?
I am not 100% sure what our licensing speed is, but it's less than 15 days. The governor holds us to that standard.
We require 20 days notification. Then the contractor submits the notification and they're ready to start the job, and then we have to tell them that they can't start the job because they don't have to asbestos.
Exactly. Depending on where they are, I know this is not easy thing for a lot of people in the state, but if it's important enough to them, they can drive to Richmond that day and have it done in a customer service.
If that information is available on the website,
I believe it is. Is it on the website? And that much detail might not be on the website. Best would be at the end, I'll give you some contact numbers, and it'll be the Board for Asbestos Lead and Home Inspector phone number for licensing staff, and then I can give you the Board for Contractors number as well. That would be helpful, just in my opinion.
And there's actually an asbestos contractor license, which starts with 3306, and a maintenance contractor has that number. Most of the contractors have a 2705 or a 2701, and that's why you have an asbestos specialty on that contractor's license, is because you can do the non-friable, non-regulated, as they call it, asbestos with that specialty, like if you're reporting your site, you can be the RFS or the RFS. Sorry.
Okay. Good information. All right, the training program. Firms must come to the Board for Asbestos Lead and Home Inspectors to be accredited to teach both initial and refresher asbestos training in Virginia. When you're applying for an asbestos license, you must complete initial training. And then every year when you renew, you must have completed a refresher course. You could go back and take initial again if you really wanted to. You would accept it upon renewal, but most people stick to the refresher course for renewal. All right, some of you may have heard rumblings of our 2 new programs. This is the first one. This is actually EPA's program at the moment, Renovation, Repair, and Painting Rule. And this actually is lead, not asbestos, so I'm switching gears with you guys. But anyone receiving compensation for renovating, repair, or painting work that disturbs painted surfaces in residences and facilities occupied by children and built before 1978 must have EPA's renovation, repair, and painting certification. DPOR is in the process of promulgating regs and getting approval from EPA to run this program in Virginia, but it's at least another year to 18 months out before we take it over. Right now, if you have anyone interested in that certification, you have to contact EPA directly, either those numbers or their website there. that executive branch review is complete, the regs will be open for public comment. In the next screen, I'll show you how to give public comment. However, the anticipated effective date of this program is not until July 1st, 2011, so a year from now. The Virginia Regulatory Town Hall. This is where you can not only register as a public concern to receive updates on any regulatory programs that you're interested in, but you can also make public comment on any new programs that we have or that we're currently creating, or any changes to existing programs. And once you register as a public user, you will receive email notifications of any changes. Here's a snapshot of the Town Hall website. You'll see what the blue arrow is. This is the public comment sign-in section. This is where you go to make public comment. And then the bottom link is actually registered public. This is where you can register the registered member of public to receive updates on any regulatory programs. And then this is DPOR's contact information for the Board for Asbestos Lead and Home Inspectors. You can see the telephone number there is 367-8595. That's the best number to call for any of the licensing questions. If you can't remember something that was said today, or you have further questions, you can also ask Michelle and me. But after today, that's the number to call as far as the licensing is concerned for asbestos contractors. Now, as far as the board for contractors, the ASB specialty, that number is 804-367-8511. Any other questions? Thank you very much.